Welcome, everyone. My name is James Boland, and I'm the founder and president of the Australian Community. Our organisation has been around since 2011. Our mission is to connect Australians who are living in the United States, primarily here in New York and around the US. This is truly a global broadcast, and we do appreciate everyone who is tuning in. Jack Manning Bancroft, are you on board?
Gotcha. I'm here.
Jack, well, how long has it been? 2016, I think, was the last time we caught up.
Yep. Yeah, about 4 years ago now.
Great. Jack, perhaps what you could do, first of all, to everyone is introduce yourself, talk about AIM, and also specifically about what you're doing in other countries and here in the US.
Sure. So 16 years ago, I started a program to try and work out how we could break this divide between people with power and people without power, between people that were divided into races, into different backgrounds, that didn't know how to have conversations and how to, I suppose, build that empathetic framework so we don't design worlds where we see so many people left behind. And the model was basing out of universities. We gather a bunch of university students together who were destined to go off and get their degrees and end up in the upper echelons of society in a number of different places, and try and work with the most marginalised kids that were being left behind in Australia. That's our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids. So my family's Aboriginal through my mum's side and white through my dad's side. So I grew up with these two worlds sort of combined, and felt like if we were going to change the way the world existed, we had to try and find a way to gather together, hopefully in a space where we had the freedom to imagine new realities and then try and build it. So that was with 25 kids in 2005. I was 19 at the time. And then since then, we've worked with 20,000 kids, Indigenous kids around Australia. We're now in 6 countries around the world. So when we met in 2016, we're about to launch globally and take the model to give the chance for young marginalised kids in universities to be a lead mentor, to then gather 100 or so university students and then go back and work with 100 or so marginalised kids in their communities. So it sort of really builds that you have a leader who's come out of a marginalised background, who's suddenly a lot of kids, university kids who are from potentially privileged backgrounds who may not have spent time with those, that demographic, gets to see this incredible leader who's leading and organising. And we know the Obama story of his apprenticeship of being an organiser and leading change. And so we give that stage for that young college kid, give that stage for there to be a safe space for those college kids coming out of privilege to come together. And then we work with those marginalised kids. So it's not a traditional, savior mentality. It's really based in sort of lifting up the strengths of the role models that are out there. And in the last 4 years since we met, so I stood on a stage in New York at Chelsea Piers and said, we think we can be one of the groups that transforms the planet. We think if it's not going to be us, then who? And if it's not going to be now, then when? And since then, have now scaled to 6 countries. We're in Uganda, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and we're also working in about 5 to 10 universities in America or in the space of sort of kickstarting and rolling that off. And I'm back in Australia at the moment. And what AIM looks like now, we're 16 years in, is, I'm sure everybody knows that Black Lives Matter movement has really lifted up again, it's sort of so sad that we're still in a place where we're screaming for the most basic of human rights for people of colour and people who are left outside the margins, like the most basic fundamental of human rights. And back home in Australia and a number of places we're working, like, you've just got kids who and whole communities and whole worlds that are ignored by the system that we've designed. And working out how we can redesign that has been my life's work to date, and trying to sit down and reach out a hand to people with power in government and in corporations and try and work out how we can redesign the way the world works is part of that, and then lifting up those kids so they enter it. So that's our framework. And then moving forward, the gig for us is trying to work out how we build this network of hooded scholars around the world in university campuses across the planet, then work with teachers to set up this imaginative framework in schools so we don't miss so many kids and have so many kids outside the margins and have a need for AIM to drop in. And the third one is we just work on culture as well. So we have a clothing line. We work on creating stories that try and redefine our narrative and work out how we can build a hopeful agenda. So it's sort of the 3 pockets that we play within.
You have to have lived under a rock to not know that there is a huge swell of support for the Black Lives Matter movement, not only here in the US, but obviously around the world, and it's obviously being felt in Australia as well. I think that the challenge for a lot of, and this is the feedback I'm getting from our members, is that, they obviously the first thing in reaction is to go out and march in the street, which is great. But people want to do something that's of a more constructive nature. They want to see something that they can participate in that will end up with tangible results. Now, I know we've had this conversation several times, and we're actually making the announcement tonight that we're starting a fundraising campaign. Now, this is on the back of the $500,000 that we've raised in the last 5 months for the Australian bushfires, and it was $510,600 odd dollars that we've raised since January 4th. That's money that we've raised and sent to Australia in conditional grants. So essentially, we've supported organisations like WIRES, the Australian Wildlife Warriors, the New South Wales and Victorian Fire Service, and the Country Fire Service of South Australia. So this money has gone back, and these organisations report back to us with grant use reports. So we can then share that information back with our donors through our social media, so people can actually see the real work that's being done through their donations. And I think that's also a missing component that's resonating very well with our donors, is that they actually do see the good work that's coming back. So, Jack, we're launching a campaign tonight. The website will be going live at about 9 o'clock tonight, where we're going to be focusing on raising money for our education program. It's one of our original programs that we made part of our 501c3 back in 2012 when we filed. And we'll be supporting AIM as one of the organizations here in New York specifically. And I know we're speaking with Helen about that. One of the universities here in New York will be supporting the mentorship that's going on there, and possibly even getting mentors involved as well. So I think it's all very well for people to put up posts on social media saying Black Lives Matter, but first of all, Black Lives Matter to all Australians, white and Indigenous. And it's also important to give people a way in which they can donate money to a cause or participate in a cause that is actually going to help with education inequality, which resonates obviously back to AIM and the way in which they're creating their mentorship. So great to see you, Jack. Great to speak to you again, but also want to let you know what we're doing here in New York. We're just not putting stuff up on social media. We're actually starting a campaign, and we're going to be actively putting that out to our donors for them to donate to, because I feel that if you have Australians who wanted to participate, they understand our organisation, they see that we've raised a lot of money for the bushfires, and also to being able to support programs like the Australian Indigenous Mentoring Experience here in New York, such a great initiative to be part of.
Yeah, very cool, James. And I think the donation side of things is definitely, when you look at the macro economic challenges of how wealth is shared, it's just got to be a key part of it. So I think that's brilliant to have that there. What I'd say in terms of engaging with wanting to see tangible change is, my door's open, our door's open to anyone that wants to try and design different things. So if you're working in organisations, if you're leading organisations, if you're thinking about that third bucket, which is cultural change, we're open to building campaigns together, to building stories together, to working out how we can design different things around employment and using what we've done to try and shift those levers, because I think progress is about big surges of energy and then trying to work on design. And that's where we see ourselves as trying to be that diplomatic group, catching some of the energy and working on a design frame. So just as we sat down, 4 years ago and I've always been open to exploring what it could look like, I'd challenge everybody here to, traditionally we think about the role of the non-profit as the place we can give the donations to. I think one of the great challenges that is coming out of the Black Lives Matter is challenging people to use their privilege and to work out how to do the work, how to use their voice, how to be an advocate. And I'd say come to the table with us with a design, like with a half-formed design or the start of a thought or the beginning of something. I had someone I went to university with who reached out 3 weeks ago, is building this recreation parks around the world, and said, what can we do together? So we're open to it. We're open to building the conversation. If it's not us, we'll try and pass you on to someone globally or locally in the States that we know that is doing fascinating work. So yeah, I think we have to commit to action and then build on top of that parallel support with the financial work as well.
Great. Well, Jack, I'm looking forward to our next conversation and the great work that we can do together. And thank you again. I know you're on vacation with your family, so I appreciate you taking the time to meet with us early on Friday morning Australian time.
No holiday from inequality, unfortunately, James. So we've got plenty of work to do. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks, Jack.
Bye.
Welcome, everyone. My name is James Boland, and I'm the founder and president of the Australian Community. Our organisation has been around since 2011. Our mission is to connect Australians who are living in the United States, primarily here in New York and around the US. This is truly a global broadcast, and we do appreciate everyone who is tuning in.